Greetings doers and welcome to another video. So I just came back from a long trip. It was a total of 6 hours between going and returning from the location where I was at, and that's because I went to a regionals this past weekend. So this is going to be an unorthodox deck report. I'm going to be doing my deck profile. I'm going to be talking about the regional. I'm going to talk about the reasons why I decided to play at these regionals and what my history in the game has been with these kind of events, like as of late. Because I think this is the first time in this channel where I'm talking about a regional deck profile or a regional that I actually went to an event. The last regional that I attended was back on 2022 with the Lunar Light Tournament strategy, but that was before I even started this channel. So now you're going to have a hands-on experience of what my training prowess has been. I'm going to show you my deck. I'm going to talk about the different rounds and just my goals leading up to this. But yeah, without further ado, we'll just begin. So the reason for attending these regionals is I want to try to play at nationals and actually want to go to the worlds this year. I had one shot last year to get my invite, and that was at the OTS tournament that I hosted by ISD Gaming, and I sadly did not secure my spot in top 8. I lost in top 8. If you remember that deck profile, it was with Vanquish Soul. And that pretty much led me to just finding another event where I had to secure my spot, and this regional would have been another one. This regional this past weekend was also hosted by ISD Gaming, the same people that hosted the OTS where I played last year. And they had 184 players, which meant 8 routes of Swiss and 24 spots for invites into Top Cut for nationals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my strategy, and then we'll talk about the rounds and whether or not I did secure my spot for that regional. But yeah, I decided to play Labrynth Unchained. This is going to be a little bit different from the last deck profile that you saw from this deck, because I really just was testing a lot of things prior to the event. I want to have as much of an edge as possible at this regional, and some people do familiarize this deck because they have seen me play with it in the past. However, some could be in the toss-up or whether or not I would be playing this or Centurion, because Centurion was the other deck I've been playing a lot. Another thing that made me pick this choice for the event is the way the format is being shaped up right now. With the banning of Baron and Savage, like a lot of end boards in a lot of like strategies have been significantly weaker, which made it really easy for a strategy that just plays Unchained cards to just thrive and like capitalize on what your opponent's resources are. Like Unchained just was very powerful as an engine to just break through boards, but the Labrynth portion makes it really strong if you go first. Basically, if you go first, it ups the ceiling of your deck, so your opponent cannot just break your board with standard board breaking cards. As opposed to like regular Labrynth, where it's just a little bit too fragile to certain board breakers like Droplets and Talents and Thrust and Duster. Like this one is a little bit more resilient. It has a little bit more dimension to its interruptions, and like Labrynth historically has been a dark archetype where if it goes first, it just almost secures the game if everything resolves. It does have a fair weakness to hand traps, but the Unchained portion of this deck is not as weak to hand traps, which makes the synergy and the balance very strong. I already made a combo guide talking about the different lines that you can discover in this deck, but every time I play this strategy, I just keep finding more and more unorthodox things that you can do in this deck, and it makes you think that this deck has like limitless combos, almost similar to a deck like Ritual Beast, where there are like a lot of different lines with a lot of different combinations. The synergy is just very like fluid. Shouts to Andrew Rodriguez, fellow EJ gaming team member, and he was also staff from the event because he used to be a member from EJ ISD Gaming, and he's basically a regular. He told me to play another version of Unchained that is different from this one, and I did test it out. It like was very close to like what I wanted to play. However, I went into this event thinking about Tempai Dragons and thinking about like a lot of other like super aggressive strategies, and not many people know how to play against trap cards anymore. So if you just go first and you just set up a board with different trap cards and your opponent just does not know how to answer them, you're just going to secure a lot of spot. But at the same time, if your opponent has like strong like back row cards like Lightning Storm or Feather Duster and Cosmic Cyclone and stuff like that, you can also capitalize on them because this is a deck that can also play around those different cards. In with a different sequence of plays that you can do, especially if you're playing like with the Unchained cards alongside it. It's just giving you pluses and like more miscellaneous advantage. But yeah, we'll just go to the list. 3 Ariana, 2 Chandelier, 2 Stovey, Lovely, Lady, Arias, and Kuklak. That's it for my Labrynth monsters. You notice how I'm playing only 2 of each furniture. I am citing the 3rd of each one, and I'll get to that part later. But I like this ratio. It didn't like felt bad for me at all. I did lose one round because I clogged with the furnitures. Like I just drew a very redundant hand with them. So just playing lesser copies of them in the main deck was not a bad idea. It just gave me more room for other engine cards or other non-engine cards that I want to play, and this ratio worked out for me. For the Unchained, 3 Aruha, Trevara, Chiyama, Sorama, Abom. That's it for the Unchained. The last list only played 1 Aruha. I bumped it up to 3 because I had a hunch that people were going to make me go second, like a lot of times. And with again, this goes back to what I was talking about this format. A lot of end boards are not as oppressive as they were before the Baron ban. So that makes like Aruha popping a trap or a spell just significantly strong. It gives you so much card advantage. Your opponent pretty much needs floodgates in order to just stop what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to start breaking apart their entire board, and Aruha just makes that very possible. That's why I maxed out on this. Sadly, we only have 1 Charvara. Otherwise, this would have been a 3 alongside the Aruha. And I'm still not playing Rakea because Rakea is just, it really doesn't create any card advantage outside of its own archetype. And the interruptions that you would do by using Rakea are the interruptions you can do with your Labrynth engine, which is just slightly more stronger. But yeah, that's it for the Unchained cards. So I already talked about this the last time I profiled this deck, but we did have a new player, and that was the Gruesome. Last time I did the profile, I played 3 of it, and it's not to say the 3 was like incorrect, but after dropping it to 1, I just felt a lot more comfortable. What I did to circumvent that is I played Backjack, And the last card I played was last monster rather was Fiendish Rhino Warrior. So Fiendish Rhino Warrior, if you remember old Unchained, you used to play this alongside Tour Guide from the Underworld. In this strategy, is a little different. You don't have a way to tutor out the Rhino from the deck. However, if you open the Rhino, you can pitch it with your furnitures. You can also summon it to just try to protect your other fiends from like other forms of disruption from your opponent. Uh, this just falling into the graveyard means that you can either send Backjack, you can send Charvara, you can send this. One other play that I was doing a lot, well, it wasn't a lot, but I was doing every so often, is I would dump a starter with this. I would just dump something like Ariana and then just summon Mug and just bringing back the Ariana. So basically, Rhino plus any other extender meant any fiend monster you want directly from your main deck into your board, which is very strong to think about because like fiend monsters are just becoming a lot more stronger before than ever, and you know that's just one play that you can do with these cards. Backjack. I guess since we're talking about Backjack and we're talking about these, we might as well talk about Nightmare Throne. Nightmare Throne is the next spell card, the spell card that we use. So Nightmare Throne can search for these two or Labrynth Cool Clock. Last profile I was not playing Backjack, I think. Backjack interaction is if you open it with a furniture, you can interrupt your opponent in turn 0, which is very important. Another thing that this does is that it just gives you another layer of interruption, and it also gives you a way to chain block with your cards, which is very important because Ghost Ogre and Ash Blossom are very popular in the format. So that's it for Backjack. It worked out. It was very phenomenal. Same with Rhino. Rhino also did well. That's it for monsters. That's 21. Spell cards, Nightmare Throne. I don't need to explain this. You just activate it once, get your guys. And if your opponent thinks that you're on Jubel, they're going to like capitalize on this. And this just becomes a magnet for hand traps, which works out perfectly fine to our favor because like this is not a starter. It can become a starter if you play the Dark Beckoning Beast. Again, shoutouts to Andrew. His build did play the Dark Beckoning Beast. However, I did not want to rely on Dark Beckoning Beast just being a 1-card combo towards my engine for Yama because Unchained naturally is known as a 2-card combo deck, same as Labrynth. Like there are no 1-card combos in Labrynth or in Unchained, so you're just playing a lot of mismatch, a lot of matching cards that just work well with each other, and just your opponent stopping this just puts you in a very good position if you just have enough extenders. Triple Abomination's Prison. Before I talk about Abomination's Prison, I might as well talk about why Throne is not a 3. I don't want it to clog in my hands. I don't ever want to see a multiple Throne. Now going back to Abomination's Prison, you don't care if you see multiples of this card. This card is not redundant at all. So, like if you draw multiples, you just use one to add Rakeya or Shiyama, and you just use the other one as fodder to just tutor your Unchained cards from your deck. So, fantastic starter. Always play 3 if you're playing any Unchained strategy, like even as a side engine. And Rarity Collection is going to give us a new rarity, more rarities of these, so it's gonna be more affordable now for people that just didn't have the luxury to have this before. The last spell card is Triple Prosperity. I'm playing a total of like 15 one-offs in my deck, and I don't want to break on those cards. So I want this strategy to be as consistent as possible, and Prosperity just helps with that. If you're smart, you know what you're banishing. I faced a template player at the regionals. I banished 9 cards with these 2 pots, and I still won the game. Because I just kept most of the most important resources that I could from the extra deck. Now for the track cards: 1 welcome, 3 big welcome, 2 prison, 1 escape, 1 D barrier, 1 rollback, and triple karma cannon. I think most of this is self-explanatory. I think on the last list I was playing either 1 and 1 or 2 and 2 of the Unchained traps. I pretty much played with this ratio because this secures your grind game, while this is just your 1 interruption. Fun fact: if you notice this deck, your only interruptions traps that removes monsters from the field are Big Welcome, Labrynth, and Escape. You're not playing other removal cards. So I was very skeptical on just playing 1, but it worked out. You have enough ways to recycle it between Lovely, Labrynth, and Sorama. Just to give you an example. I played 2 barriers before. I dropped it to 1. I didn't regret it. I only tutored into this once, and it won me the match. But that's not to say that this card has no merit. It just I wanted to cover as many matchups as possible, and barrier, as strong as it is this format, it doesn't cover like a lot. Like it doesn't cover the more important matchups. Like for example, Snake Eyes. But that's the main deck. That is 41 cards. Extra deck: triple Yama, double Rage, Anguish, and a bomb. So these are pretty much standard. The last event, I think I played only 1 Rage. I bumped it to 2 because I wanted to respect Kashtira Unicorn being in the format. So just making sure that you have enough of your strategy to play with if you get unicorned. I did not get unicorned, but it was good to have 2 just in case. I almost never went to 2, but again, I digress. For the other miscellaneous link monsters, we have Muck, Unicorn, Goddess, Anima, and Espilorn. So the last time, the early stages of this deck, I almost didn't summon Muckraker at all. I thought this card was win more. Now I'm seeing myself summoning this card a lot. It just secures the grind game with this deck. Like, once you go into the grind game, you need to start using cards like Muck just to start recurring your resources back, like, more thoroughly. It does suck that it requires a discard, but however, just being as powerful as it is, kind of warrants and mitigates that. I almost thought about calling Unicorn as well. The reason Unicorn is in here is because if you get to activate Welcome Labrynth before doing Rage effect, that gives you a fiend that you can use to interrupt your opponent, as like the same way you would with SP Little Knight. Relinquish Anima is here because of the play with the Squirmer. Basically, if you have a Squirmer and already another one, another extender in your graveyard, you can just Squirmer into this, Squirmer, banish, just summon the other 0/0, and this already turns itself into a SP Little Knight. A lot of monsters already summoned in the extra monster zones, and like into very specific zones where this card can just capitalize on them. So that's also good on that. SP Little Knight, self-explanatory. Underworld Goddess, I just wanted to cover as many matchups as possible. Like dealing with Expert Noir, for example, dealing with like just other problematic boss monsters. I did summon this It won me my round 6 match, which was a very, very strong match. I'll talk about my matchups in a bit. Um, but yeah, no regrets with this extra deck. I think this extra deck was very, very well knit. Now for the side deck, there's third copy of each furniture, feather duster, triple dark ruler no more, 3 magic deflector. This card was borrowed, but yeah, like this is the card, magic deflector. For those who don't know what this card does, this is a pretty much old card. It came in Abyss Rising, but it reads, for the rest of his turn, negate all equip, field, continuous, and quick play spell cards on the field. So essentially what that means is, against the Tenpai Dragon matchup, if you shotgun that card, like, you pretty much shut down the entire deck. Like, they can't Sanguine Kaiman, they can't Sanguine Field Spell, they cannot Droplets. If they're playing the Sky Striker version, their Striker cards are also dead. And this overlaps into other matchups as well. Against Snake Eye, you can do this, and it shuts down Temple, it shuts down that Snake Eye the Bellstar. Against the Jubel matchup, which I did face against, it shuts down Nightmare Pain, it shuts down Nightmare Throne, which is also 2 important cards. This card was good. I can't say it did a lot because I only faced 2 Tenpais and 1 Jubel, and I did not draw this against the Jubel player. This is also, like, you know, other strategies like purely loses to this card. Against yeah, that's pretty much it for the magic deflector. I play 3 goats. This goes in hand with the furnitures. So you notice how I'm not playing Imperm in this deck. The number one reason I did not play Imperm is because of Crossout Designator. A lot of people are playing Crossout in, like, their main deck, and I just wanted a way to stop my opponent, but at the same time I did not want to get cross-outed, because if I get cross-outed on, like, an Imperm, I'm losing just too much card advantage. The other thing that Black Goat does is that Black Goat secures whatever you're negating. Like, for example, if you face against, like, the Voiceless matchup, where, you know, they have barrier of the Voiceless, or if you face, like, very specific cards, the stuff that cannot be targeted or affected, this card affects the player, it does not affect the monster. So even unaffected monsters get hurt by this card. If you just open it and you go first and you have a set, it just becomes a very strong, like, lingering effect for a specific monster. If you flip this against the Tenpai player and you just call Bident Dragion, you should be winning that game. If you remove this from the graveyard and just call Chandra or Fadra, you also secure a spot. Very fantastic card. I highly recommend it. This card is the bane of rogue decks, pretty much. You shouldn't be losing to rogue decks if you, like, play this card. And the other 3 traps are 3 floodgates. These are the 3 that I chose. For there can be only one, which I need to explain that one because I know it's a little unorthodox because it does conflict with our deck. The basic fundamental reason for this is against any other monotype deck do have a way better grind game than they have. So against Flu, Purely, like Salamangreat, strategies like those, you just flip this card and you shouldn't be losing that game. It pretty much feels like 2014 format when Bujins, like we're going toe to toe against, like, other players with the Kaiser Colosseum. It just feels like that when you're playing this card against other mono decks. And worst case scenario, you can pop this with Chiama's effect, or just like shark canning all your monsters, and just be able to play around this card. But yeah, that is the main deck. I mean, well, that is the deck in general. Now let's talk about my rounds. So it was 8 rounds of Swiss, as I mentioned before. Round one was against Heroes. Uh, so that one ended on a draw. One note that I have to mention when it comes to that is that uh, Malicious being a 3 is a way bigger deal than a lot of people think, especially in that deck. It makes Masked Hero Bion pretty much the best normal summon in that deck. If you just normal Vion, dumping Shadow Mist, and just banishing it to grab Poly and just grabbing Malicious, it's just a lot of card advantage that you're getting like out of that strategy. And that did happen to me, and that ate a lot of time in the round. And it didn't secure my spot because game one I won very quickly. Game two, uh, he summoned Masked Hero Darklaw, which actually did do a lot of trouble for me. And I should have scooped earlier, and I didn't, and I got punished, and that became my first draw. Uh, the second draw was against Branded. So the context behind that one is I lost the die roll again. And it's very unfortunate that I lost the die roll because I did open Dimensional Barrier and I had to stare at a field of Dragoon, Sanctifier, Guardian Chimera, and and Mirror Jade. And one card that I forgot to talk about my extra deck. Well, let's go back to like the extra deck. So I forgot to mention these three cards. Obvious, not as obvious, and this one's obvious. And I did summon this against Branded, against the full board of monsters, and that pretty much helped me buy out a few turns until I could pick apart his entire board, which I did. And then I just tried to use the barrier to just close him out. But he outgrinded through those resources. He summoned Mirror Jade 3 times against me in that same duel. And it just became a very steep grind game where he ended up like taking it. And then I won game 2. And game 1 lost like took 31 minutes. I did not scoop game 1 because I was very certain that I could win that match, but my opponent just kept drawing pretty much a lot of really good cards. Like one top deck was Aluber, which got him to like Branded Fusion, and I was forced to debarrier the Branded Fusion, like instead of just holding it out. Otherwise, it was just going to become a blowout. Uh, in that match, I did summon Chaos Angel against him. I summoned it twice. Like once with the synchro summoning mechanic and the other one with Muckraker. And even then, it just became a very strong grind game until he top decked the cards Tizia that just won him the game. But yeah, forgot to show these cards from the extra deck, so that's why I switched the screen. Now I'm going back to like the report at hand. Uh, Round 3 I faced Voiceless Voice, and I lost the die roll again. Pretty much I lost every die roll except for round 4. But uh, game 1 he bricked. Game 2, I pretty much fought through the entire board, and I like made sure that I fought through the entire board, and I went into a position where I just summoned Lady Labrynth and tutored out Dimensional Barrier to make sure he couldn't ritual summon on the next turn, and I just won that game. So I won 2-0. Tenpai, I could tell you about the match, but the match is just too easy. Shoutouts to Mamel from Got Gaming. He won the he he beat me on top four of the DMK 1K, so I got my revenge. But game one, he I think he won game one. Game two, I know that he opened triple field spell, and that was very rough for him. Game three, he summoned Quakimeru Drago against me, which is pretty much like a staple of Tenpai players now. Like Tenpai players are just summoning Quakimeru on me, no matter what deck I play, and that's where the three Aruhas came up. Aruha just made it so I could just secure the game and just fight through his Quakimeru Drago. I tried to OTK him that same turn by trying to roll back Welcome Labrynth, but he DD crowed my Welcome Labrynth, so the game took one more turn. But I was so ahead in card advantage that it was just very rough for him. Round five, I faced against Snake Eyes. Shouts to Michael Rivera, another DMK champion. I lost the die roll again. What happened that game was very, very unorthodox. So my hand was very, very weak. It had Abominations present. It had Abominable Unchained, but it also had Chiyama and a Furniture. So what I did is I pitched Chiyama with a Furniture before he got to Appaloosa, which was the Snake Eye choke point. If you play against Snake Eyes or you play Snake Eyes, you know what I'm talking about. And so the board was Celine, three Snake monsters, I think. He had Temple, and he didn't have anything in the back row. So it got to a point where I just set Big Welcome Labrynth. I set regular Welcome Labrynth, and he made Nightmare Phoenix and popped the Welcome Labrynth, and that played into my Abominable, which I summoned, pitching Big Welcome and using it to pop his Nightmare Phoenix and bounce his Celine, and that made him go Flambridge Pass. And I broke through his board and I made Wave King Caesar. However, he I did misplay because my detach from Sharvara or my set from Sharvara should have been Chamber of the Unchained instead of like the Escape. Because my thought process was he's going to commit to Caesar eventually, and that's gonna make me detach Sharvara, which gets me to the chamber. But he did not do that. Instead, he capitalized on my summons and he summoned Typhon, which is 100 points stronger than Caesar. And I tried to secure like playing against Typhon by flipping Big Welcome Labrynth. However, he drew for turn Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, and that won him the game. So pretty much a little small mix between my misplay and his top deck just secured the spot for him. Game two, I pretty much bricked. Well, I didn't brick. I just opened double of each furniture, which is kind of unfortunate. Round six, I faced against Chimera. Lost the die roll, like usual. Game one lasted 40 minutes. The reason for that is he resolved his entire combo. My hand was not super weak, but I had to grind the game out, and I felt like the board that he made was very strong. But I also, at the same time, I felt like if I fight through that board, I should be able to win the game, and I did. But the grind game of Chimera is so ridiculously strong that the game lasted as long as it did. They did Baphomet's Graveyard effect twice and King Chimera's effect twice. So they special twice from Graveyard, twice from Banished, each and every turn, and it just put me in a very awkward spot. He We got to a point where he exhausted all of his Chimera resources, and he had no summons left from the extra deck. I started like capitalizing on my Unchained cards. I started like spamming out the board. He interrupted me at almost the correct times, but I managed to summon Underworld Goddess by taking his Illusion Chimera, and that won me the game because that meant he can no longer loop from the banish pile or from the graveyard. He can no longer loop from the graveyard to special summon because Underworld Goddess does have a graveyard negation effect. Round 7 I faced against Tenpai. I won 2-0. Game 2 he dimension shifted. No, game 1 he dimension shifted. And I fought through the dimension shifter. If you're smart, you shouldn't lose to dimension shifter with this deck at all. It is a little bit rough on your resources, but just play it out, see their interruptions, because Tenpai did not have like real interruptions outside of spheres. Game 2, I pretty much sacked him. I opened Arya's Chart Cannon, and he opened Fenrir Field Spell. So by the time he summoned Chandra, I just activated Arias, set the Chart Cannon, flipped it, and he ended on very minimal resources. And since it's turn 0, his Sangen Kaimen is not going to be as effective because he already wasted his normal and special summon. So I won that match. Round 8 was against Yubel, and I did misplay game 1 because he flipped Skill Drain on me, but he had regular Jubel, Spiral Jubel with Nightmare Pain up. And I did not know the ruling behind Nightmare Pain. I did not know that only I take the damage, even under Skill Drain. So it put me into a position where I was forced to attack into all the Jubel monsters that keep floating. And I lost too much damage and just lost game 1. Game 2, every worst possible outcome that could have happened to me in that match just happened. I tried to lovely Labrynth snipe one card out of his hand, and the one card I sniped was Spirit of Jubel. I tried to interrupt a Kashtira Unicorn that he had to prevent him from getting to Kashtira Birth, but he already opened the Kashtira Birth. And I got rid of his Nightmare Pain as well as his Jubel, but I got rid of the Jubel without without destroying it to avoid like him Jubel looping. But it was all for naught because he opened the second copy of Nightmare Pain. And yeah, that was the match. Yeah, my ending record was 4-2. If my Jubel opponent got 24th after Swiss, which means he got his invite, meaning that if I would have defeated my Jubel opponent, I had a very, very strong chance of getting that invite as well as the other players. So unfortunately, I am not going to nationals this year, but I can. Well, if I do go to nationals, I don't qualify for the main event unless I play like a last minute regional flight. Still, it was a very fun experience. I don't think I made an incorrect choice. It's very unfortunate that I lost pretty much all my die rolls because I am playing a trap deck, and that is just very unfortunate. In hindsight, the power spell version of Unchained could have secured those wins for me because it would have been easier for me to break in boards. But that's pretty much just hindsight and just a lot of theory. Not every game goes as is planned or intended. Uh, but yeah, I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep dueling.